Welcome to the Dog Trainers Podcast, a podcast created by dog trainers for dog trainers or anyone who's ever fallen in love with man's best friend.
Episode 12, a deeper look into balanced dog training.
Okay, cool. So let's get into, I think our next subject we want to talk about is, we talked about what people think it is, right? Or how it can kind of be misinterpreted. Mm-hmm. But let's go ahead and go into, just as we did at the other episode, let's talk about what good practices in balanced dog training looks like, right? Because this is going to be really hard, or it's hard for everyone to say that they've done this before. Okay, right. So let's go ahead. What do you got?
Okay. Well, here I'm going to go over a couple points, but I'm going to let you start because our first point in particular is one that Bobby Bobby Giraffe, who I know Bobby, but you've known Bobby forever, and and just knowing you guys as I have, like, together, Bobby has always had, like, he's always really kind of looked out for you and really made it a point to be there for you, which I think is great. So I'm going to let you speak on Bobby.
Sure.
But the one that I think that applies to this is Bobby definitely had a way of formulating his training approach in such that he would teach us, read the dog and let the dog tell you kind of what they're looking for from you. It's all about being present with the dog, tune all the other stuff out. You create the energy in any training session that you want to be there. And it was definitely, like, in a good way, it was a very heavy thing to have to pick up and run with, because it was like, when you have great training lessons, it's like, well, good for you. Right. But when you're out of whack, it was hard. It was good, and I'm glad, but it was hard when, like, I'm having a bad day for whatever reason, and and you call me out, because we're friends. You just tell me like it is, and it's like, dude, you're like sucking right now. What's going on?
You're sick. Yeah.
But it's good though. I appreciate the honesty, and I think that it's ultimately very beneficial for us as trainers, because we have an obligation to this dog and this client.
Exactly.
So exactly. So as much as I don't want to get into the whole hokiness, and then I'll let you take over. About balance and Zen and stuff like that, and I'm not making fun of anybody's like ideals, but to the extent that I do agree with you, there does need to be balance even within the trainer. If you're like upset or whatever the case, knock that out.
Great point. Great freaking point. That's so important. I think on two scales here. One part of being a really good balanced dog trainer is you have to constantly seek out balance for each and every dog that you work on. Mm-hmm. Right. Now, sometimes, we might notice patterns in dog training. So we might have like certain ways that you start or certain things you like to focus on because they interest you. However, there gets to this point where in order to make the most amount of progress, and in order to really start seeing like lifelong changes in dogs, we have to really understand dogs at a very deeper level. And one thing that my mentor, Bobby, taught me, amongst many things, was really making sure that you figured out what the best way to bring balance to all the variables are. Mm-hmm. Right. And so sometimes the balance of the variables is the home environment, or the types of owners that we're dealing with, right? Are they consistent? Are they inconsistent? Are they going to do the work? Are they not going to do the work?
Are they overly emotional?
Are they overly emotional? Are they heavy-handed? Are they mean?
Right.
So there's so many different things. And part of whatever training method that we were going to imply at the time, it had to bring balance, as much of balance as possibly possible, to that circumstance, right? Because ultimately what our goal was, and one thing he used to always say, and he still says it till this day, he goes, my client is the dog. The human just takes care of my client, And so he would say that all the time. And it's the truth. If you put yourself in the mind space and the head space of like, how do I make this dog live the optimum life? Then it definitely becomes a whole different mission than just being a better trainer than the guy next to you, right? Or making that sale, or getting that client, making that client happy. It becomes about making your four-legged client happy, right? So I think that's one great thing about any balanced dog trainer, and there is no finish line to that journey, if you will. It is constantly, as long as you are seeking to get better every single time you work with the dog, to become more balanced, to find harmony in that circumstance with that dog owner, that environment, their behavior problems, et cetera, then you are on the right path, at least becoming a balanced dog trainer.
Right.
In essence, balanced dog trainers don't really like to say they quit. Right? There's always something else to learn or something else to do, or something else that they can try with a dog, because at the end of the day, it's for the dogs.
Okay? Well, all of dog training is about evolution. So when we consider perfection in its not in its weird abstract, but in its practical, my client's dog's issues are this, we need to get them here. Let's say you get them there. Now, even that finish line is a moving target, because again, life goes on. So what if the client is a young couple who hikes all the time, blah, 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 5-10 years later, now there's children. Now we're talking something different. So now the finish line has been moved a little bit. So it's always a matter of just dialing in and keeping everybody where they need to be. And also dogs evolve over time too. A 6-month-old puppy won't be the same, behaviorally speaking, as a 3-year-old dog for many reasons. So it's always this fun, it's always this ever-changing thing. And it's really nice as dog trainers that, I love meeting new clients all the time, but I really love also getting to see, previous clients who are back a year later. I see how the dogs grow. I just saw, Thor and Waffle just had an Instagram made. It's a couple dogs that we worked with. Yeah. Waffle's so huge now. And
I'm sure it's a puppy.
Yeah. And he's it's great to see them. And it's great to hear that they're doing well, and how they've changed so much, and how the owners have evolved with the information that we've given them, and they've kind of made it their own. And I think that that's awesome.
Yeah. That's awesome. That is great. Okay. Sounds good. So let's get into another thing that we think would be a good practice for balanced dog training. One thing is to master or be proficient with as many techniques or methods of dog training as possible, right? Because I know one thing that I've learned in my own career is that if I didn't obsess over certain techniques, whatever they were, could be, advanced food work or clicker training or marker training in general, Keeler method, off leash work, e-collar work. If I didn't obsess over learning those methods, I wouldn't have learned the limits of each of those methods, because each method has a limit, just like every martial arts has a limit, right? It's really important to test out those methods, test out those theories, test out the way you wield those methods and those theories, to really get a better understanding of how effective you can be within any given method. That's super important, right? Also making sure that you surround yourself with mentors who can teach you what those the extent of those methods as well, right? Because, learning something via a book or a video is one thing, but definitely having a mentor who can teach you and show you is super important as well, so that you can even expand those limits to even a further place, right? And then another aspect that I think is invaluable to a lot of dog trainers. It is strange how this exists, but there are dog trainers who don't understand actual dog behavior, and they don't necessarily know how to read a dog's body language effectively, right? And this makes sense, because some of the times the only way one can actually learn dog body language or behavior is by spending time with lots of groups of dogs, right? On an individual basis and on a group basis. And not every dog trainer has that ability to be able to, see big groups of dogs and how they interact with each other and read body language on a daily basis, right? What are your thoughts on that?
No, I agree. I think that I've learned so much that's helped me be a better trainer. And training is typically no more than 2-3 dogs in a home at a time. But I've learned so much that has helped me dramatically improve my training game from daycare stuff. And seeing how dogs behave when there's 20, 30, 50 of them at a time, and how a group can influence, another group, let's say 6 dogs doing whatever and 6 other dogs see this, versus there's a certain amplification to having multiples of dogs. One dog is, has this going on. When there's 2 dogs in the house, it's not twice that. It's like 6 times that because they rile each other up. And now there's all these different variables that have been created because of there are several dogs. So I agree.
Right. Yeah. So understanding body language, dog body language, and behavior is super important. I remember some assignments would be, at my old company, if we didn't have enough dogs in daycare, we would literally, one of our assignments would be to go to the dog park and study and watch dogs interact with each other and try and come up with interpretations of what conversations they were having with one another, with the humans. And it's crazy. Like, I mean, think of, this is kind of off topic, but like, how many dogs have you seen poop in your career?
I don't even know. I don't want to know that number. Why am I thinking of this?
Like it's uncountable.
Right.
But think of how good you are at being able to predict when a dog has to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like something so subtle
and
so nuanced that you pick up on it and you're able to see language fluently. Dog body language. Go ahead.
Let me give context to what you've just said too, because I had this earlier. I was walking a dog. This was our second e-collar lesson, and I believe our 4th lesson overall. So we started with food work, moved to leaf pressure at the e-collar. Now, this dog has a history of being reactive on the leash, being not reactive inside the house, but being just too much in the house, jumping and so after having done our first e-collar lesson last Saturday, they did really good work this week. And today the dog looked great and we were healing and I couldn't be more happy and I couldn't be more impressed. I was proud of them. I was telling them how proud I was of them. And right toward the end of the walk, dog started pulling and the client was being tuned in. I was walking the dog. Client was being tuned into me, really paying attention to when I was correcting what I was doing with my leash, with my collar, with my verbal no and goods and markers. So when the dog started pulling toward the grass, they were like, are you doing this? Are you doing that? And I said, no. And I released him, break. And I told them, just according to how things are going and how well this dog is doing and how obstinate he's being just all of a sudden, I think he has to poop. I don't think he's being stubborn. I think he has to go. Yeah. And so he goes into the grass, boom, poops like a little while later. And there we go. And then throw him back and heel. And the dog was great again. And I was like, yeah, so it is good to know these things. Yeah,
it's true. I mean, poop. I mean, we all know the feeling of a good poop, but it's just the little nuances of understanding dogs' comfortability and desires and motivation, excitement, all those things, fear, all those things are really, really important. And that honestly helps us in the knowing of what method, idea, technique that needs to be executed at that time. Right. Okay, cool. Thank you for listening to the Dog Trainers Podcast, a podcast created by dog trainers for dog trainers or anyone who's ever fallen in love with man's best friend.
We'll see you next time.